What is up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're all doing well. I had a question left in my comment section on a video that I posted about a month ago. And I told this person that I would do a video response, so that's what this is. This is for someone who goes by Big Bobby is the username. He also said that his name is Robert, so that is how I'm going to refer to him. Robert, thank you for your question. I appreciate it. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get this response to you. I've had a lot going on the last week, as have probably a lot of other people with the holidays and everything. So I apologize for that, but I hope that you can understand. Now, I'm not going to go through all the background context of this because it makes the video too long. So I'm just going to focus on answering Robert's question since he knows what this is all about. So let's get into it. So this is Big Bobby's original comment here, and that's where we're going to start. So, Robert, you had quoted me. You said, quote, "The earth is still pushing the medium of the air upward," end quote. Okay, but that's not the same explanation as an upward rising earth. One, does the earth physically move upward? Two, is there a force emanating from our earth giving the effect, an upward rising effect? I'm assuming is what you were trying to say. From what I've studied from Einstein's perspective, is upward rising Earth was another of his thought experiments in concern with reference frames. So I'm not going to go through all of, Einstein's thoughts on reference frames and everything. We're just going to focus on the question here. So look, if I had to simplify the question, Robert, it seems like you're asking me, why is the Earth moving upward the only option here? Is there another option, like some force emanating from the Earth giving us certain effects? So I would say, number one, yes, the Earth is physically moving upward. Number two, no, there is no force emanating from the Earth giving that effect. So it's really important that you go back to the very beginning, right? We're talking about matter, physical, inanimate matter that appears to be moving to the ground. Whether it's I dropped an object accidentally, or a leaf comes off a tree, a rock comes down the side of a mountain, matter appears to move down to us. And when we're talking about matter moving down or appearing to move down, you've only got so many options here. And I think it's important that we go back and talk about those options, because once you get your mind wrapped around that, then everything else becomes much more clear. Now, before we go through the options, you did leave me a second comment here. And look, I'm not going to go through this second comment. It's here on the screen for anybody to read if they want to. Basically, Robert, I don't want you to feel like I'm just dismissing your second comment. I'm not. But a lot of the things that you bring up in your second comment are just kind of secondary things, right? They're like side issues here. So I don't deny for 1 second that we live in a dynamic system. I don't deny that there are many aspects, many, things within within nature that have an effect on matter, right? So temperature, for example, or like you mentioned right here, where you're talking about viscosity of a substance or medium obviously will have some effect on matter. But again, a lot of this is like secondary things. You got to bring it back to the original point, which is we're talking about inanimate matter in motion, right? Viscosity doesn't cause motion, temperature doesn't cause motion. Those aren't forces for motion, right? So, forces to move matter. So, my point is that I feel like a lot of what you mentioned in the second comment is sort of like secondary things. Um, And so what I want to do now is I want to go back to the first the three options that I mentioned, and let's go through that because I think that's the best starting point. Everything else comes afterward. So let's go through the three options. Okay, so if I'm standing here holding this object like this little stick man, right? We can all agree that if I let this object go, this object will eventually end up on the ground, right? We can all agree that the ground and the object do make contact with one another. They will meet one another. We can also agree that when I'm holding the object, there is a distance between the object and the ground. And that distance, if I let that object go, is going to close. We can all agree on these things. Now, here's the deal. One piece of matter cannot come into contact with another piece of matter without one or both of them being in motion. What I'm saying is that this first object would have to move to meet this object, okay? This second one would have to move to this one to meet it, or they would both have to be moving at the same time to come together and meet one another. There's no other way around it, unless you want to go to some fantasy realm with fantasy physics that don't exist. There has to be some kind of motion in order for these two pieces of matter to meet one another, to come together, to come into contact with one another. Something has to be moving here, or they both have to be moving. Now, the same logic applies with this object I'm holding in the ground, right? This object I'm holding either has to move to the ground has to come up to meet the object, or they both have to move together at the same time. There is no other way around it. That is your only options, as I've listed up here at the top. Number one, the object's moving down. Number two, the earth is moving up. Or number three, the object and the earth are moving at the same time to come together and meet one another. Now, from this point forward, in my opinion, it's very simple. Once you go through the practical physics, and there is a plethora of demonstrations out there that you can look at that tell you that the object is not physically moving to the ground. I will leave a link to a couple of different channels that you can look at to see some of those demonstrations. There's a ton of them. It's not just bottle drop tests. It's not just drop tests in general. There's a ton of different tests that have been done now that prove that the object is not physically moving to the ground. So option number one is gone. Once option number one is gone, now you know option three automatically is gone because the object and the earth have to be moving at the same time and the object isn't moving. The only option that you're left with here is that the earth is what's moving up. There are no other options. It just comes down to whether or not you want to accept the practical demonstrations that have been done that prove that. And that's up to you. There's nothing I can do about that. You have to be willing to be honest with yourself, be honest about what you see and what is happening in the demonstrations, and then go from there. So it's that simple. That's the only options that you have to start with. And then once you narrow it down through logical deduction based on practical physics demonstrations, then you come to find that that is your only option. The earth is what is moving up to meet the object. So if we go back to your questions and stuff, number one, I would say has already been answered. I've just answered that. Now, in your second comment, as I said, you mentioned some things that I feel like are secondary issues. You got to start by figuring out whether or not the matter itself is moving. Then you can look at, okay, how do these other things affect that matter? So in your second comment, when you're talking about, the viscosity of the medium and stuff like that, I don't obviously don't doubt that the viscosity would have some effect on the matter, but I don't really know if your issue with that was based on me talking about the object slowing down, or whether it was based on me talking about how the medium is still pushing upward on the object. Because that was my point. My point was about how the earth is pushing up on the medium and the medium is pushing up on the object. It's like a chain reaction. But if the medium is not dense enough, then the medium cannot keep the object moving at a constant or accelerative speed upwards. So that object is going to lose its speed. It's going to decelerate. Now, the viscosity of a medium would obviously probably help to slow the object down. Um, but the point was, like I said, was just about the earth pressing up on the medium and the medium is pushing up on the object. So I hope that this is clarified a little bit for you about where I was going with that or what I meant by that. Maybe it's not clarified anything for you. I don't know, but I've given it my best shot. And I hope that it has. If it hasn't, then I apologize for that. Maybe I'm just not clear on what you're trying to say. It's quite possible. I don't know. But yeah, the earth must be what's in motion. The object is not physically moving to the ground. Practical physics tells us that. It's just that simple. Everything else is secondary to that. So start there. That's what I would say. Anyways, there you have it. That's it. That's really all I got to say on this. Again, Robert, thank you for your question. Everybody else, y'all take care, and I'll catch you guys again real soon. See ya.